Residents are still struggling to dig out days after earlier storms. Roofs have collapsed. Cars are buried. South Lake Tahoe Fire Rescue Battalion Chief Kim George.
Some of these shaded neighborhoods have probably 8-10 feet in the city, and the county areas even more so. With all of the snow load and the amount of weight that's sitting on roofs, we have some pretty significant concerns coming up with roof snow load with all the rain.
She was heard there on KGO TV. A gunman shot up a Jehovah's Witnesses hall in Hamburg, Germany last night. By the time it was all over, 8 people were dead, apparently including the suspected shooter, who prosecutors say was a former member of the Jehovah's Witnesses. Russia's President Putin is congratulating China's leader Xi Jinping, who's won another term as president. The AP's Ben Thomas.
The ceremonial National People's Congress awarded Xi his third 5-year term with a vote of 2,952 to 0. The outcome was a foregone conclusion for a leader who has sidelined potential challengers and filled the top ranks of the Communist Party with his supporters since taking power in 2012. In October, Xi broke with tradition and had himself named to a third 5-year term as party leader. I'm Ben Thomas.
Former President Trump calls it a witch hunt, but he now reportedly has an opportunity to testify before a New York grand jury that's been investigating hush money payments made on his behalf during his 2016 presidential campaign.
Hey, Robert, how you
Prosecutors are
doing?
nearing a decision on whether to proceed with what could be the
And
first
everybody
criminal
out
case
there,
ever brought against a former U.S.
We're going to have Paul
president.
Vallis on
The
today.
actor Robert Blake has died. He was 89. He starred in the TV show Beretta. This is AP News. Texas has executed a convicted killer.
Texas has executed an inmate for the drug-related killings of 4 people more than 30 years ago, including a woman who was 9 months pregnant. All 4 had been tied up and shot in the head in a Houston home during a drug robbery in 1992. 52-year-old
Andre,
Arthur Brown
Dave,
Jr.
how
received
are
a
you?
lethal injection in Huntsville, Texas. His execution was carried out after the U.S. Supreme Court declined to stop it. Brown's attorneys had argued he was exempt from execution because he was intellectually disabled. Brown was the 5th inmate in Texas and the 9th in the U.S. put to death this year. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
The CEO of American Airlines says he's ready to give pilots pay raises. A senior captain on a plane like a Boeing 777 would earn almost $600,000 a year. A pilot on a Boeing 737 could make almost $500,000 a year. I'm Rita Foley, AP News.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Michael Caro. For today, mostly cloudy skies, lingering snow showers early on, then a chance for a rain-snow mixture into the afternoon. Less than a half-inch of daytime snowfall with highs into the upper 30s. Then for tonight, any rain-snow mixture ending early on, lows drop to 31. For Saturday, just holding on to some cloud cover there, but looking to stay dry with a high of 30.
Hi, Miss Jackson. I'm about to call up the pastor. Are you on Facebook yet?
I am.
Perfect. All right. Give me about 30 seconds here to call him up.
Of
What's
course.
the difference between a union roofer and a non-union roofer? Both start their day the same way. Get dressed, pack a lunch, drive to work. But that's where the similarities end. A union roofer knows their workplace will be safe. They'll receive a fair living wage. If there's an illness or accident in their family, they can go see the doctor because they have employer-provided health insurance. The non-union roofer may not have any safety protocols
shoot.
at their workplace. Their
Hello?
health insurance, if it is offered to them, is taken out of their paycheck, and their wages will most likely be 20% less than the union roofer.
Miss Sally, it's Santita. I'm sorry for calling you so early, but it's only because of the campaign crunch. I cannot find Mr. Vallis's number. Could you give that to me? Okay.
It's time for you to form a union at your work.
No,
Don't settle
but
for less than you deserve.
I-
Say yes
okay.
to unions.
I didn't want to play fast and loose with it.
This is a WCPT moment in
No,
Life.
I appreciate
On February
that. Thank
8th,
you so
Starbucks
much.
in Memphis,
Pardon me
Tennessee
for calling you, but I know
7
you're not getting any
workers
sleep
who are trying
anyway.
to unionize
Sorry.
the company. Starbucks is currently denying these
I'm so
accusations,
sorry.
saying they were fired for
So you'll be able to breathe, kind of.
This is not the
Maybe.
first time
You'll be able to
something
breathe
like this has
kinda in a
happened,
few minutes.
as
You didn't
union
press
busting
in?
can be traced back
It's
to the early 19th century. Union busting is when an employer tries to delay.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
We have the pastor up.
No. Please
Despite
get
being
2 more
illegal, It has
minutes.
sadly become common.
Okay. Blessings to you, and I appreciate all your
All
help.
members of the Professional Air
Thank
Traffic
you.
Controllers
Bye-bye.
Organization who went on strike.
Okay,
Amazon firing
I
Smith,
received his number, and I will send that to you shortly, okay?
To the latest case of Starbucks firing employees.
You're talking to me?
Yeah, I am. I'm sorry.
You talking to me?
I'm talking to you, Miss Nero. There you go. Yeah.
All right, great. I have the pastor up now.
Okay, well, let me say hello
If
to
you want to
him.
talk to him.
Well, I'm getting the rest of this together here.
WCPT 820.
Pastor Hatch, how are you?
Talk, where facts matter.
I'm super duper this morning. How you doing?
I am doing great. We're going to come up just a couple of minutes late, but it's still 5 minutes for you, and then I'm a pivot to someone who I think you should have come by and speak to your your congregation and your various groups, an infection preventionist. I think she's one of the top in the world, young black woman, first person in her family to go to finish high school, let alone get a PhD. And infection prevention is now something that they're all talking about with respect to COVID and everything else. You know, how to prevent infection. And I think she has so many practical pieces of advice that she gives. It's amazing.
That's 855
Amazing. So I'm going to connect her to you because I really think that more of us need to know who she is.
We will arrange to have the donated vehicle picked up.
More of us need to know that there is such a thing as an infection prevention. In fact, she's the head of the largest organization of infection preventionists and epidemiologists in the world.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So, because we've got to let people know
a number story begins in
what it is that they need. All right, so I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull up these last.
This is Pastor Mark Pat, my yeah.
I'm sorry?
I need him to say a few words for me.
Hatch, New Mount Pilgrim Church on the west side of Chicago. Ready to share a good word today.
Thank you so much.
We're good. You both sound great.
Fantastic.
We have about 1 minute and 20 seconds.
Okay, let's have a great show, everybody. May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in thy sight. O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Let's have a great, 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 great show. Okay. Let me do this. Okay. Okay, can you turn that back up just a little bit?
Loses
Okay,
temper
perfect.
sometimes. Loud noises would put him on edge. It got rough. So I finally said to him, Dad, you gotta get help.
As a family member or friend, you may be the first to notice when a veteran you love has been going through changes. Things like withdrawing, drinking more, or increased anger could be a sign of a larger health concern, but help is available.
Dad,
We have about 20 seconds.
Thank you.
one-on-one and group therapy, and got some really great tools to help him manage things. And I got my dad back.
Listen to hundreds of inspiring stories at maketheconnection.net and learn how you can
Stand by.
the veterans in your
all
life.
right.
Treatment works. Recovery is possible.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Getting just a little bit of feedback, but we're working on that. It's a joy to be with you today on March 10th, Friday, March 10th, 2023. We're going to be talking with Chicago mayoral candidate, the former CEO of the Chicago Public Schools, Paul Vallis. Going to be getting the latest on his take on the campaign and want to find out from him what he envisions for this city. indeed, that can be a harbinger of what mayors envision and want to do for urban America. Is there an urban American agenda? I do intend to ask him that, and I thank him for joining us today. And of course, Brandon Johnson, not of course, but grateful that Brandon Johnson will be joining us on Monday. So we're going to be talking about the issues that are driving this campaign, and I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Let's talk about it here on the Santita Jackson Show. Call us at 773-763-9278. And of course, we'll be talking about infection prevention 3 years into this pandemic, which we technically are still in. 3 years in, where do we go from here? First, black people were dying more frequently. Now white people are. Before the therapeutics, of course, we lost millions of people. But now even with therapeutics and a vaccine, most people who are in the hospital right now have been vaccinated and boosted. What can we do to protect ourselves? Not just from COVID, but from all of these infections that are out here. And have you gotten the regular tests that you need? Are you checking yourself for lumps? And are you getting your prostate examined? Women, are you getting the breast examinations? And that counts for men too. Remember, Shaft had breast cancer, Richard Roundtree. So there's a lot that we are going to pack into those 10 minutes or so that we have with Dr. Shanina Knighton. But I want to hear from you about the mayoral campaign. What do you think is going to happen? Right now, Paul Vallis has a solid lead in all of the polls, but fully a quarter of Chicagoans, according to those who are most likely to vote, have not made a decision about whom they'll vote for. Yeah, so it's anybody's race to win. Anybody's race to win. And at the end of the day, you need to win. So I want you to know I'm coming to you from WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I want you to meet my morning stars. That's right, Robert and Dave and Andre and Michael Ann. She's one of the original morning stars, and Antha from there in France, and Dave Dowling, our brother from the north. That's right, north of the border. So many of you are with us today, and it's a joy to be with you. Meet them on YouTube, on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, or the Santita Jackson and Friends page. Let's get to some of these headlines so we can get some good news from Pastor Marshall Hatch. In Chicago, we're going to have snow showers today. That's right, 36 degrees. It's raining right now, but it will at times be snow today. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 33 degrees, snow. In the NBA, the Bulls will be playing the Rockets tomorrow, and the Nets will be playing the Timberwolves tonight. And in the NHL, Chicago will be playing the Panthers, and tomorrow, the Wild will be facing off against the Sharks. 7 people were killed in a mass shooting yesterday at a Jehovah's Witness Kingdom Hall in the German city of Hamburg, and what the country's leader has denounced as a brutal act of violence. The alleged perpetrator also died in the incident, according to Hamburg police. A week after the kidnapping of 4 Americans in Mexico, investigators are still working to piece together how and why the abduction unfolded. This comes after a cartel apologized for carrying out what one victim's father has called a senseless crime that left and 1 Mexican dead. The Gulf Cartel, which is believed to be responsible for the kidnapping, also issued an alleged apology. President Joe Biden released his annual budget on Thursday, and indeed, progressives are praising the budget, saying that it's much more compassionate and it gives more help to people who are in need. And it outlines his policy priorities for the year ahead. The 2024 budget mostly rehashed the president's earlier proposals to expand the social safety net and to pay for it by raising taxes on the wealthy and corporations. He wants to restore the expanded child tax credit and make permanent enhanced Obamacare subsidies, and he wants to provide universal free preschool, make college more affordable, and establish a national paid family and medical leave program. It just continues to get more and more challenging for Norfolk Southern. Thursday's U.S. Senate hearing about the ongoing environmental and public health disaster in East Palestine, Ohio, did not go well, according to reports from More Perfect Union, a progressive media outlet. CEO Alan Shaw refused to commit to providing workers with 7 days of paid sick leave, ceasing stock paybacks, and abandoning Wall Street-endorsed policies that critics say contribute to the 1,500-plus derailments seen each year in the U.S., including Norfolk Southern's toxic crash near the Ohio-Pennsylvania border last month, as well as a derailment. They keep having derailments, everybody, that happened in Alabama just before the multimillionaire executive testified. Those are just some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. We have got, he's doing so many wonderful things at his church, and we are just so grateful that he was able to make a little bit of time for us this morning. We're so grateful to have you, Pastor Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch, college professor, theologian, pastor, New Mount Pilgrim Baptist Church here in Chicago, the Mafa Redemption Project, the Sankofa Wellness Project. I don't think he gets any sleep, but I'm glad that while he's got one eye open, he's going to give us some good news today. How are you, Pastor Hatch?
I am super duper. Good morning to the radio audience today, and good to hear your voice, Miss Santita.
Thank you for those two T's. Well, what's the good news? I think we need some today.
Well, you know, there's this object lesson in Scripture in Numbers chapter 13 when Moses leads the people out of bondage, out of the empire of Egypt. The enslaved class are brought out into a wilderness, and Moses sends this group of reconnaissance reporters to go and survey the land and the people in it, whether or not they can possess the promise. And there are two reports that come back from the 12 that go in. There's the report of faith and the report of fear. Now the report of faith, there are two of that said, Joshua and Caleb, we can possess it with God. And then there are 10 that give the report of fear, who said we can't. In fact, they say we are grasshoppers in our sight. In other words, they're giants, we're grasshoppers in our sight. And I'm sure they say that we're grasshoppers in their sight too. There's a report of faith and a report of fear. And often we call that report of fear the grasshopper complex. We're sure we're small in our sight and in theirs. You know, the late Toni Morrison, what a brilliant contribution as a writer she's made in her life. And she talks about something that almost all black folk in America are affected by. It's called the white gaze. It's a variation of Dr. W.B. Du Bois's, the late Dr. Du Bois teaching on double consciousness. That is that we, in our condition, have been taught to see ourselves through the eyes of others, through that uneven power analysis, that double consciousness, as victims of some type of historical terrorism. And that is what we see in this object lesson of the Scripture. The ones who said we can't, those 10, they saw themselves as grasshoppers, others as giants. And it was not just how they saw them, but it was how they saw themselves that limited their possibility. And so we always have to have faith to overcome our fears, and in many cases, the severe damage of those who come from the bottom of empire. I'm just going to lift up a couple of points. One, faith is a spiritual eye. Faith is when we see ourselves not through the eyes of our enemies, but through the eyes of our God. And how we see ourselves affects how we act, what we think we can do. I think one of Mother Jackson's favorite scriptures, Jacqueline Jackson, is, as a man thinketh, so is he. Faith shapes your self-concept, your faith in God, your vision of what is possible, your self-definition, your self-concept. comes through your vision of God within. And then secondly, faith can operate in a minority status. That's the power of it. There were 10 that said we can't. There were 2 that said we can. And both reporters saw the same inhabitants, the same milk and honey, but they came to different conclusions. Often we come out of the same environment with different outcomes. I do believe there's a governor in Massachusetts who writes a book about 2 men called Westmore from the same neighborhood. One is now the governor, the other one was in prison, and he calls it the other Westmore. Same zip code, different outcomes. And often we can sit in the same church with the same teaching, but it doesn't matter what church if we don't apply it. We have to come by faith comfortable with being in the minority. Jesus called it the narrow road. And all of us are praying for poor Jay Morant in the NBA, you know, trying to still be down after God has lifted you up. Trying to be about that life when Christ wants to give you abundant life. Sometimes the world's fashions don't fit me. We have to dare to be different. In fact, following the crowd is lame. Joshua and Caleb become comfortable holding down the minority opinion, the minority report. And the question is today, whose report will you believe? The one that says you can't or the one that says you can? And so your faith, thirdly, will determine your future. Listen, out of the 12, only 2 made it to the land of promise, and faith was their entry ticket. So today, whether you can or you can't, will determine how you see yourself and the God that is in you. Amen.
Amen. Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch, the New Mount Pilgrim Baptist Church here in Chicago. You need to get on over there and get blessed and see this magnificent cathedral that is on the west side of Chicago. I keep hearing it's the best side, but you know, at least I went to school over there. It's all one side as far as I'm concerned. We're all trying to get the same thing. Sending you so much love. Blessings, blessings, blessings to you and your beautiful family. They're all serving in that church. They are quite an inspiration. The magnificent Hatch family and the patriarch, Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch. Thank you so much for being with us today. Sending you much, much, much love. Thank you for that word of faith this morning. Which narrative are you going to believe? Let's talk to Reverend. Well, I was about to make you a reverend because you sure do have an evangelical zeal about preventing infection and overall about looking at really helping us to become CEOs of our health. We did an integrative medicine, health and wellness panel yesterday on the station. And the next time they have one of those, you've got to be on it. Because we were talking to an acupuncturist. We talked to a doctor who understood the connection between head and heart. We spoke with a spiritual leader who talked to us about the impact of what trauma can do to you, and on and on and on and on. And we still find ourselves in this moment in which we really are. We want to put COVID in the rearview mirror, but the issues about our health surround us every single day. Talk to me about what it is that you want us to know in this moment. In this moment, I mean, what hand hygiene? I mean, from that to, just people are going to have to deal with less. The COVID protections that we had, they're being taken away. The monies that we had to get us more food or even to get us fresher food. That's all going away. What's the path forward, Dr. Knighton?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I think one of the things for us to consider is going to first and foremost understand that we're talking about a condition that happened not too long ago when we talk about COVID-19. And the fact that it's not in the rear. And when I say it's not in the rear, we're still understanding things about it that we didn't understand before. And as a result of that, we're starting to see those dollars shift. And so where many people think that, yes, the support is going away, it's almost as if it's not necessary. It's going away out of, like, let's say, pockets and benefits. But you're starting to see more money that's ramping up, that's going towards research to now discover what do you do with people that have long COVID. Long COVID meaning those symptoms are still long and lingering even after the illness itself is gone. It could mean that you are now testing negative. It could mean that you are now asymptomatic, but you're still having some sort of lingering symptom that has not gone away, even though you're no longer contagious or at risk for COVID. And we're talking about things that can go from being present after COVID for 3 months, and some people experiencing up to years, meaning you have some individuals that their ears keep ringing. You have some, they have a chronic cough that just won't go away. So when we think about where the money is going, and it's going towards long COVID, I tell people, you don't want COVID. And if you have had COVID, then the risk of you getting COVID over and over again, we still are unaware of what long-term consequences can occur as a result of that being in your body over and over again, let's know one time. So when we mention practicing prevention, hand hygiene, distancing, masking when it's appropriate, ensuring that you are taking care of your health and getting your antioxidants and your vegetables to make sure that your body is healthy just in case you encounter another illness. You want to stay ready or have your body ready so you don't have to get ready, so you don't have to think about those consequences. And I say sacrifice what it is that you think you want right now for what you really want later, and that's health. We don't know when the next pandemic may be. We don't know when the next pathogen is around the corner. Whether this thing leaked in the lab, whether, it literally did have the origins from a bat and then it translated over. We may not have all of the answers, but we know that it got here somehow. And we know that there's long-term consequences associated with it. So with that being said, take care of your health and understand that infection prevention and control practices, as we shared over time and on this show, continues to prevail, and it's not just a COVID infection prevention practice, but it is an infection prevention practice against other illnesses just in general.
Infection prevention, everybody. Hey, Dr. Nina, Heydrnina. Follow her on social media if you want to get some of the best, most practical advice regarding your health. She's got it. There's so much that she brings up that, that we just don't even think about. And and if you listen to the World Health Organization and all of these other foundations that have had something to say about COVID, now they have switched the conversation over to infection prevention. How can we prevent the spread? How can we prevent the spread? How can you prevent yourself from getting not just COVID, so many things. So many things. So everybody, please take good care of yourself. Sending you so much love. Dr. Shanina Knighton. Of course, we're going to have Paul Vallis in the next hour, at the bottom of the next hour, to talk about his vision for Chicago. But now I want to hear from you. What is your vision for Chicago? What do you need this new mayor to do? And who are you inclined to vote for? Yeah. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Are the candidates talking about the issues that you want to discuss? Are the questions and the debates that you want to hear asked, are they being asked? And please call Rainbow Push at 773-FREEDOM, 773-FREEDOM. We will be having our own debate, and we want to hear from you because we want to present your questions to the candidates on March 31st. Let's talk, everybody, about this mayoral race in Chicago. It is heating up. They say Paul Vallis has the lead, and now we want to know, but a fourth of you have not made a decision yet. So it's anybody's race. It's anybody's race. And who's being polled anyway? Have you gotten the phone call? Call me at 773-763-9278. Back in just a moment. Thank you, thank you. Hey, Dr. Knighton, how are you?
Getting ready to run out, just gathering kids up for school this morning.
Oh, bless your heart. Girl, thank you so much for being with us today.
Absolutely.
I'm almost on sensory overload with all this information that comes at us all day, every day, but that's okay. It's just, oh boy. It's a lot.
Yeah, what goes into that is definitely learning how to filter stuff.
Hold on.
Yep.
Okay, hold
Gotta
on.
learn how to filter it out because it is so much, unfortunately.
Well, okay. Let me see. I'm sorry.
What you talking about on the show?
Well, today, I'm going to have one of the mayoral candidates on in the next hour. So I'm asking everyone to call in now and tell us, who they might be voting for, what are the issues that they want this new mayor to deal with. What is it? Just what is it? What are the issues driving the campaign? I want to know what their thoughts are. And so I'm going to find out. And I'm just really, everything's coming up in the election. The campaign itself is really beginning to heat up because, we are a month away, really 3 weeks away from the election itself. And it's anybody's race. But interestingly enough, you have really the black middle class and the black establishment who are lining up with Paul Vallis, and not with the progressive black candidate. It's surprising, but not surprising. So there's a lot to, to dig into here. It's a lot to dig into, hon. A lot.
It is. And I think one of the things that I'm hoping one day the conversation to elevate more about is just around the concept of, I would call it bystander effect. But when I'm speaking of bystander effect in this particular instance, it's everybody waiting around for somebody else to do it, opposed to us all realizing that we can all do a small part. And that is one thing, with the voting, but then it's another thing, if you think about a community and you hoping somebody going to improve your community, are you that person that's going to get up once a week and go outside and pick up trash, know? Person that's, still attending the council meetings and trying to find out what's going on in your neighborhood? Are you sitting on one of those violence committees to understand how you can really impact change? And so I love how we talk about the political standpoint, but I think sometimes it becomes so stifling where people are just being human beings, don't realize they have so much power and so much influence without putting all of that pressure on one person, instead of being able to amplify their efforts, which I think is so impactful, but it's a voice in a conversation that's rarely discussed.
Well, absolutely, but that's like voting,
Miss
right?
Jackson,
Yes?
we have about 30 seconds or so.
Okay, who do we have?
We have Miss Wells, we have Reverend Jeanette Wilson, and Kevin Lampy. And I'll let you know when we have Dwight and Reverend Thurston. I'll text you.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Okay.
Stand by.
Okay.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Friday, March 10th, 2023. We're going to have Paul Vallis on in the next hour, but we want to hear from you within the next hour about what it is that you want me to ask him. What is it that you want from this new mayor that we will have April 4th? You can vote, everybody, and you can register to vote. Say you're not registered right now. We have same-day on-site voter registration here in Chicago. So let us get out and vote, everybody. Do not let the minority make a majority. Make a decision for the majority. Don't do that. Get out and vote. Voting is important. You don't always get what you want or who you want, but if you continue to advocate, you can get what you need. That's all political pressure is. No one wanted LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson. Oh my gosh, from Texas. He was not someone who black people in particular were warming up to at all. Yeah, just and progressives and civil rights advocates. They said, "Oh boy, are we in for a ride?" And we were in for the ride of our lives. Turns out he was probably the best modern president aside from Lincoln that we have had. Absolutely. But that's because of our advocacy. It didn't just happen. It didn't just happen. He made some political decisions, and we did too. So no matter who gets into office, you're going to have to continue to advocate. You're going to have to go to the city council meetings. You're going to have to push your alders. You're going to have to work. The only way that the American system works is when you work it. So as we get into that, I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. I want to hear from you today. What issues do you want these candidates to discuss? Remember, you are hiring them to do a job for you. And all of the corporatists, the corporations, have their lobbyists lobbying them. Okay, yeah, that's happening too. So I think everybody can win, but the people ought not be shortchanged. Call me at 773-763-WCPT. Chaparral, what's going on? Can we get some of your food? Can we order some of your food right now? I'm happy about the prom and the arches, and because people are really doing that sort of thing now. They didn't do that in my day. You know, you just got dressed, took some pictures, and that was the end of that. There was no party. It was just...
prom send-off is like a major thing at Santita, and it's getting bigger and bigger every year, and I tell you, it's like a mini wedding sometimes. But yes, we are gearing up for prom season, so please get your orders in. We're currently booking for April and May weekends for prom send-off. And we do the custom arches, the suite tables, as well as also the custom name tables. But we are still selling our food, so you can always call us at 708-526-4546, 708-526-4546. You can also get your wings. We're still taking orders for Easter. I know it's coming up. And so just give us a call at 708-526-4546. 708-526-4546. We'll be happy to handle any of your needs. Thank you so much, Santita.
Thank you so much. Let's get to this. Let us get to the mayoral race. Let us get to the mayoral race. Who do you have? It turns out the polls are showing that Paul Vallis has a solid lead by 11 points, but 24% of us have not made up our minds. And I'm sending something to my board operator. I'm going to send this to you right away because they said that up in Minnesota they're not able to hear us clearly. So let me send that to you, and we're going to work all of that out for my AM 950 radio family. My AM 950 radio family, thanks for reaching out to me. Call me at 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-WCPT. Want to know what your thoughts are today. And so we have got Reverend Jeanette Wilson, of course, Maple Park United Methodist Church and Rainbow Push. We have got Dwight McKee, National Action Network, one of the founders of of Operation Push. And of course, we have got, and he's with the National Action Network doing so much work to help Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch and Reverend Al Sharpton, and he continues to help all of us here and helps to keep us clear. Reverend Stephen Thurston the retired teaching pastor from Salem Baptist Church, but of course he's at New Covenant, his family church. We're so glad that he's with us today. He's got such a brilliant voice. And of course, Kevin Lampe, a brilliant political strategist. And so we want to find out from you, what are the races? Now it's beginning to shape up. It turns out that according to these polls, Mr. Vallis has a clear lead, but 24% of us in Chicago haven't made up our minds yet. And of course, that can continue to shift. Remember, the polls are but a snapshot in time. They're a snapshot in time. So let me start with you, Dwight McKee. What do you see?
Morning, everybody. Well, I see people still trying to make a decision in terms of which way they want to go. I think that it's earnest struggle a lot of people have, because particularly on the Gold Coast downtown side of town, where you have a progressive liberal base of white people who believe in a lot of the causes that Brandon represents. But they also at the same time feel like they're under siege. And for the first time in their lives, they feel vulnerable to, this madness of people sticking up stores and banks in the middle of downtown, and shootouts downtown, and carjacking. And so they're much more prone to be law and order than they normally would be, particularly in a city like Chicago, where the liberals usually are very progressive and not so reactionary when it comes to the police. I mean, if you remember how the demonstrations at the Democratic Convention back in '68, and a lot of the young people back then who were progressive went heads up with the police. Well, now they are grown, or grandfathers and grandmothers, and it's not so predisposed to go hit the police now that they themselves feel under. So I think it's a look and see. I think whoever has the best argument for their case, the most passionate argument, can win this thing. I think Brandon still has a good chance at it, but I think he has to be a little more definitive in his argument and a little more explanatory when it comes to defunding the police, so people will really understand what he's talking about.
Kevin Lampe, your thoughts?
It is important that we get beyond just the veneer of some of these issues. That we talk about if a candidate is discussing we need more police, how are we going to get more police? What are we going to deal with residency? What are we going to deal with how long a person commits to the police department after we train them, so they don't get poached away from another municipality around the country. Fort Lauderdale's been chasing after our police for a while, trying to get them hired and sending them down to the Oceanside city there. But we also have to dig into, when we talk about public safety, let's talk about what happens and one of the reasons why we can be insecure. What is the economic development issues? What is the social programming? What is the education? How does the education look? You have two people. We have an interesting point here. We have a public school teacher and a public school administrator running against each other. Let's get into the details. Let's talk what teachers need in the classrooms. Let's talk about what resources parents need in order to prepare their child to go to school. What is the role of charter schools? What is the role of private schools? What is the role of neighborhood schools? What is the role of teachers? What is what is happening at our administration level? We have two candidates who can and should be their feet held to the fire, but to get into the deep details, and we've got so many forums coming up it's kind of an opportunity for everybody to learn more about these candidates.
Yeah, because I think that we're hearing buzzwords, but that's something that the media, Kevin, are demanding. But we really do need specifics. Like, what do you plan to do about the funding of the Chicago Public Schools? What role will these charter schools have in this education landscape? Where are we trying to achieve peace or law and order? What is all of this? What does all of this mean? What does all this mean? And and let us. We need to find out exactly what is going on. Reverend Thurston, your thoughts?
Yeah, white voters determine who made the runoff. How black and Latino voters shift in the next few weeks is going to decide the winner, because we know that race is one of the most definitive predictors in how an area votes in Chicago. And to the points that the previous two speakers made, which were excellent, nearly half of Chicago voters had rated crime and public safety as their top two electoral issues. And more than 60% of voters said that they felt personally unsafe in the city. I believe that law and order language, as Dwight said, is resonating with a lot of white people in Chicago, because for many of them, they've seen an uptick in crime in their area for the first time. And so they immediately want somebody who's going to come in and rectify that issue. We look at the shooting that took place in Highland Park. That one shooting in that one predominantly white affluent area struck a nerve. And there was legislation that was passed when black people have been getting gunned down for decades, and nothing had been done. So when white people holler, legislation and policy shifts. So we've got to pay attention to the language that Paul Vallis is using to align white people who are voting, because we ain't coming out to vote. And that's going to shift the landscape of how this thing moves forward.
But now wait a minute. You make a point that the hit dogs holler, right? And that white people are pushing and they're advocating. What lesson are we to learn? Because many of us did not vote. And interestingly enough, Brandon Johnson did not win the black wards.
Yeah.
That's just odd, just given his stance on public schools, his advocacy for them, and and Paul Vallis and his stance on charter schools, which when you go to the people's fora, these meetings all around the city, people are very angry with him on the ground about the public school system, and yet they're not voting for the advocate for public schools. Why do you think that is? I mean, because you've been in Roseland, you're on the south side, Pastor Thurston. What's going on?
And is that many black people feel that their voice doesn't matter, that their vote doesn't count. We've heard this for years, for decades. There's apathy that's there. And then as younger generations have come along who've been disconnected, disassociated with the movement, with the fight, with understanding the nuance of policy and how policy is the real thing that pushes people, because they have a misunderstanding or lack education in that space. They don't engage the space, but then just cry about the issue after someone has been put in office who's not going to make policy that benefits them. And so we've got this gap here. It leads us to the place and space we find ourselves in with black people not voting. We have a linchpin in this thing. If we would come out to vote, I think Brandon would have a solid chance.
If we would but come out and vote. What's going on as you see it, Reverend Jeanette Wilson?
Good morning, Santita and panelists. I think that we have to really focus on, in the next 3 weeks, civics education, and turnout. We have to increase our turnout. We have the power. And I think most people, as everyone has said, don't really understand how you make things happen. You can't sit back and be a couch potato, watching your television, texting your friends, posting on Facebook your displeasure when you haven't voted. We didn't vote. 30% turned out. If we turn out our strength, we can win. And once you turn out, you have to hold people accountable. The idea that I elect you and you care about me is just ridiculous. Nobody cares unless you push them every single day. When you go to the public schools, in the black community, parents are so busy they can't even pick up a report card. They can't meet their child's teacher. They don't spend any time early in the morning, or if you have the school board online, they don't attend. Because it's like, y'all take care of my kids and then send them home. That's not the way life works. We have to be more engaged, more involved. You have people that are retired, people that are unemployed. You don't go to a city council meeting to see what they're talking about. How are they moving budgets? Who's making decisions? We don't go to our aldermanic meetings to make sure that they are doing things in our neighborhood, passing policies that impact us. We have park districts in our community that never open for children. So you have kids on the street all night after school closes at 3. Kids are just running rampant. They're not anywhere with adult supervision. These parks have to become centers of activity for after school for children to do homework. We have to make that happen. We don't demand that our park districts hire our children in the summer, hire our children after school. You don't have this kind of thing in predominantly white neighborhoods. There's a nexus between the school and the park. We haven't said, how is it when you build all these little strip malls in our community, we still don't have the jobs? How is it that you have construction in our community and we're not digging the holes? We're not dumping the dirt in the holes. We're not involved in the economic engines that run this city. And so it's not more police, it's more investment. It's not more police, it's more programs for children. How does a 13-year-old carjack, they can't get a license, they don't know how to drive, that's why they carjack, wreck the car, because some adult has them doing things and they give them a little money. We can turn that around, but you have to demand that whoever runs, this is our agenda, and we're going to hold you accountable. But you can't sit home and not vote and just complain. They don't have enough money to hire police. People don't want to be cops anymore. It's dangerous for them. That's why they shut down 2 expressways yesterday to commemorate a fallen police officer. This crime is economically driven, is socially, emotionally driven, because you have a lot of mental health issues out here. You have a lot of issues, and we're just sitting back talking to the radio, talking to the television, talking to social media. How about you vote? We can elect whoever we want. We have that kind of power in this city, and we must exercise it. So all I'm going to do is help get the turnout and try to educate people on why the vote is significant. We don't have a minimum wage, but we're not fighting for it.
Well, but that's
vote and fight.
That's true, but that's what you have to do. But you also have to have people who are running who are sensitive enough to put these issues out there too, because these park districts are not open as they were when I was a child. They're not open. The schools that were open have been closed. So there's a lot. I mean, so there are things that we need to do, and that's part of the civics education, understanding how the system works and how you need to work it in order for it to work for you. But the other piece is you have a corporatocracy that is shutting down the system on us, and we have to know how to fight back. Let me go to Maria from Chicago. Let me bring her up. Hold on. I'm sorry, before we bring up Maria, yes?
I was just going to say, we can fight those corporations. That's what Bush used to do. We were able to shut them down. If you don't cut us in, we'll cut you out. That's why there's no Red Rooster National Tea Food stores in this city. If we don't have the jobs, if we don't get the contracts, you don't get to sell.
But we have to support the organizations, but we also have to understand the need for them. You have to understand that these gains were not given to you, they were fought for. They were fought for.
Absolutely.
But you also have to press people who are running because you want them, you need them. What are you going to do? They know how unfair this system is. What are you going to do about it aside from putting some more police on me? I don't need them. I don't need more of that. I don't need someone who's mad with his wife or her husband or their partner. I don't need you on the streets with me. I don't need another home and square. We got enough problems. And then you have people who are on the police force who want the police force to be fair and just. And they don't have any space. I mean, come on now. And then you don't want to teach the history correctly in the schools. I mean, come on. Let me go to Maria. Maria, what's on your mind? Maria? Okay, is Maria? Okay, now I can hear you, Maria.
Okay, hi. Good morning,
Is this
everyone.
my
Good
Medi?
morning, Santita.
Is this my Medi? We love you, Maria. This is one of our original morning stars. Send her much love. She has been triumphant in her healthcare struggles, and we love you, Medi. Attorney Medi Rodriguez. So talk to us, because she is an attorney also. So what's on your mind today?
Okay, so I'm going to make an analogy, all right? When the primary was held, I look at it as a menu with all these different types of food available, and I couldn't quite make up my mind. So I had to wait because I was kind of, undecided. And then when I kept hearing the people, the candidates speak and so on, so I sort of was able to narrow it down and come up with a candidate that I was willing to support. Now we have a menu with two very distinctive people. I think I know where I'm leaning towards. But here's the thing. I've learned so much from, candidates saying things and what they actually get accomplished while they're in office. So I have to look at what are they saying? What are they promising? Will they be able to get it done? Because it's not just them alone. They can't be dictators. They have to get the cooperation of the older persons, okay? So it's not a void. It can't take just one person to do it. Yes, they could promote, and they could enlist older folks to join them on their campaign, on their plans, their agenda. But you got to look at the whole picture. What are they promising? Is it feasible? Are they going to be able to deliver it? I've been so disappointed in the past in one big deliverer, someone who made a lot of promise was in the previous administration, and he basically was trying to destroy our government, our nation. So now I've gotten more skeptical. I think it's so important that we educate ourselves, that we need to look at every facet of the candidate. I mean, I'm talking ins and out, so that we are very comfortable with our decision as to who we're going to choose. Who are we going to pick that we believe will be our best representative of what we wish to see happen in the city. I love the city. I'm a native Chicagoan, born and raised here. I've seen it all. So I'm like, let's make the promises, but you know what? You got to keep them. You got to keep them, but you got to get cooperation from everybody, because this is not a one-man, one-woman game. And and right now, I have some concerns. Yes.
Are you undecided?
Police officer.
I'm not going to ask you who you're going to vote for, but you're undecided. Right. What will tip you in the direction? What will tip you toward a candidate? What do you need? What do you need to hear them say? And what are you willing to advocate for them to do once they get in office? Because there's
right, exactly, okay? And I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to work at my what I mean, my behind off.
I got about 30 seconds.
To make sure things. So I have to be convinced that the candidate that I choose represents what I believe is in the best interest of the city. Not no particular group, no race, I look at the candidate. I'm not going to look at their race, you know what I mean? I just want to look at the candidate. What are they saying? Have they captured my attention, and whether I'm willing to go with that candidate?
Okay. So what do you think, everybody?
Let Maria go.
Call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Who are you voting for? We're going to have Paul Vallis on at the bottom of the next hour, but we want to hear your thoughts right now. Call us at 773-763-WCPT. More of the Santita Jackson Show here on WCPT and AM 950 Radio, my Minneapolis, St. Paul family. If you're having trouble with your feed, please go to am950radio.com or WCPT820.com, WCPT820.com. And meet us over here on YouTube, the Santita Jackson Show, or Santita Jackson and Friends. That's right. So you can get the whole experience. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. Yes, board operator, can you call Brett? The only reason Brett called me is because Brett doesn't have your number. And if you could explain that to them, because I'm not the engineer, and they need to hear from you, okay?
I don't currently have time to do that. We're dealing with some other technical things that we have to do every morning. We're running a little slow today because we're training.
Okay, well,
But I have the time,
if you can get Matt, or I sent you the number. Someone needs to call him because I'm on air live with them right now.
Matt's not in on Fridays. He usually works from home.
I hear you,
but
but someone needs to call him because that's not what I'm not the engineer here. If someone could call him, I got to call Paul Vallis's person right now. But that's the only reason he called me is because he doesn't have your number. Please, somebody call him. Please. Okay, I've got to call Paul Vallis's office right now.
All right, yeah.
Okay.
Call Paul. I got to get these things done first,
Okay,
and then I'll make an effort to call after I'm done with these
things. If you can get
things.
someone to call him, that would be like, that's what happens when you have a syndicated show. I'll try and reach him. Hi, how are you?
Got it.
Good. 7:30. Right, it's 7:30, and then we'll bring him up at 7:31, 7:32. Okay, absolutely. Well, I thought it was going to be a conversation, but if he'd like to take any calls, I'm absolutely open to that. Okay. Well, I'm just trying to hear what people are asking, just because that's really my role, to find out what people want to, because people do have questions about police. People do have questions, since he was on my show, the question about him, and they call it critical race theory. I just call it an accurate depiction of history. How will that be taught? Education. Now people want to know how this is what I need and how are you going to do it? Okay, so I'll give him those, okay? Okay, so, so that's really where I'm going to be coming from. Okay? Sounds good. Thank you so much. Sally, thank you for everything. Of course, you as well. All right, bye-bye. Okay, everybody, you all can keep talking. I've got to do something else here. It's kind of out of my wheelhouse. Let me call him. You all can talk during the break, Jeanette, and why don't you react to what you heard from?
Well,
okay.
Well, one of the things, we were listening to you talking on the phone. I think we hear you, and so we thought we should be quiet.
No, that's not coming across here. So just keep talking.
Oh.
I'm trying to do a lot of different things. Hello?
I think the question is, how are we going to...
Brett, thank you so much for your support. I'm not the engineer. I wish I could help you. They've got some other tasks. But so after this, I want to develop a protocol. So if something goes, wrong where you are, WCPT will know what to do. Because they just said to tell people to listen to WCPT820.com, and I don't think that's enough. Because they said that's something that you have to control on your end.
Kevin?
Yes. Yes.
Just if you're there.
Please let me know. Please let me know so that I can find out. In the meantime, what should I do? Should I direct people to another feed? Yeah, we want it to be much better. We want it to be a clean feed. So I'll call you after the show. I'm going to be going someplace, but I will definitely call you after the show. Well, we just want to have the right protocol so that you can get the help that you need. Okay, well, just let me know. Thank you, Brett. God bless you. Have a great weekend. But I'll speak with you before the day is out because I want to know. Okay, bye-bye. All right, everybody. Hey, so I'm sorry. I'm trying to do a couple of things. So,
Miss Jackson,
yes.
I have our trainee Alex. He is going to call Brett right now and let him know.
Thank you so much. I just spoke with him
Just so you
too.
know.
He's going to call. He's going to call Matt as well, and he's going to call him a little bit later today.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
What is the second tier of issues that we need to be talking about? We're talking about police, we're talking about schools. What are some of the other issues that really will help? Well, candidate can help explain how they're going to do that job better for the people.
I think how they're going to invest in these neighborhoods, and people need jobs. What are they going to do about job creation, making sure that everybody works? Chicago's a city that works, except if you're black, you're not working. So I think the economic thing, you have all these safety net hospitals that are under-resourced and are not serving the community. We have no maternity wards between Roseland and the University of Chicago. You have one trauma center, University of Chicago, then you have to be airlifted to county or die.
Mm-hmm.
Or go, so we have to look at, health care. What are they going to do? What are they going to do about, you look at these communities, how do you have neighborhood-based economic engines?
Do me a favor, you guys, because his campaign, they're listening to the show. And because let's put out there the direction in which I plan to go. Because they wanted to know, because I think the same old... Well,
Here we go. We're going live.
All right.
Change the world. We can change the world. We can change the world. Change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. At the bottom of the hour, we will be talking with Paul Vallis, one of the candidates, one of the two persons running to be mayor. The election is on April 4th, but you can vote up until then, so please make sure that you do that. On-site, same-day registration. It is an easy thing to do. Remember, everybody, before you might not get who you want when you vote, but you can get what you need after the vote has been cast, whether the person you like or dislike has been elected. It's a matter of advocacy. You must advocate. Voting is the end of the beginning, not the beginning of the end. That is when the real work begins. What do they say at the wedding? You ought to cry there? Yeah, that's it. Because the real work begins after the vows have been spoken. So come on, everybody. Let's get into it. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278 here on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. On March 31st, Rainbow Push will be having a debate, a mayoral debate, and we're just really working on getting both candidates just locked in. It's going to be something that you want to attend, and you know what? I want you to be able to ask the questions of Mr. Vallis now. He's always so gracious when I ask him to be on the show, and so is Mr. Johnson, Commissioner Johnson. And so let's get to it, everybody. Here on the Santita Jackson Show, what are your thoughts about the race? What are the issues as you see them? Renee, why don't you call in? Joyce, why don't you call in? Dave, yes, you don't have to live in this city. We're talking about an urban American agenda. What's happening? Public education is under threat. We have fewer hospitals, and we have greater health needs. We have hospitals that are inadequately resourced, but we need more resources. We need economic development in our neighborhoods, and on and on and on and on. Now's the time. As Mr. Vallis's people are listening to the show, as Commissioner Johnson's people are listening to the show, now is the time for you to let them know what it is that you want. Let them know what it is that you need. Park districts need to be opened. That's right. Think about that, everybody, as our parents are working 24/7, 365, different shifts. In Chicago, we'll have a high of 36 degrees, snow showers. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 33 degrees, snow showers there as well. And then the Bulls will be playing the Rockets tomorrow, and the Nets will be playing the Timberwolves tonight. In the NHL, Chicago will be playing the Panthers tonight, and the Wild will be playing the Sharks on Saturday. Call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. 7 people were killed during a mass shooting on Thursday at a Jehovah's Witness Kingdom Hall in the German city of Hamburg, in what the country's leader denounced as a brutal act of violence. The alleged perpetrator also died in the incident, according to the CNN report. A week after the kidnapping of 4 Americans in Mexico, investigators are still working to piece together how and why the abduction unfolded. This comes after a cartel apologized for carrying out what one victim's father has called, quote, a senseless crime, quote unquote, that left 2 Americans and 1 Mexican woman dead. President Biden's budget is being praised by progressives for its attention to social safety net issues. He released his annual budget on Thursday, outlining his policy priorities for the year ahead. The 2024 budget mostly rehashed the president's earlier proposals to expand the social safety net and pay for it by raising taxes on the wealthy and corporations. Chinese President Xi Jinping was reappointed for another 5 years in a ceremonial vote in Beijing's Great Hall of the People, and the troubles keep coming for Norfolk Southern. Questioned at a Senate hearing on the East Palestine disaster, the CEO of Norfolk Southern, Alan Shaw, would not agree to end precision-scheduled railroading, a Wall Street-led profit-maximizing approach that critics say endanger communities. He would not agree for 7 days of paid work leave for his workers, or ceasing stock paybacks. And those are just some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. We've got Reverend Jeanette Wilson, Kevin Lampe, Dwight McKee, and Reverend Stephen Thurston talking about the mayoral election. They say Vallis is in the lead. They say that 24% of you have not made your decision. And you hear from Medi, you hear from our Morning Star Medi, that she said, look, I haven't made up my mind yet. I'm hearing something. I'm not hearing what it is that I need. I don't quite know, but there's a lot that I need to hear. Dwight McKee, what do you think people are listening for? I mean, 24% seems like a lot of people are still not quite sure which way they're going to go.
Well, I think they're listening to where they fit. The implications that these policies have on them and their everyday lives. If I was going to ask Dallas a question, I would ask him, why does the Trump crowd, why does the right seem so asphyxiated on you? Why they seem to have so much adulation for you? And how do you explain it, and what do they expect to get out of that relationship? They have expectations, and you have expectations. If I were going to ask Brandon a question, I'd ask him, is he going to pay for his big ideas? Is it going to be more property taxes? And who's going to more directly benefit from his new ideas, the teacher unions or the children, or both? Or are they mutually incompatible? Or they, if one benefits, does the other benefit? Are they mutually exclusive? May not be. Everybody may be able to benefit from it. I would want more specificity from each candidate in terms of how this affects me directly and who's going to pay for this directly. Are the rich going to be brought into who seems to get the benefits in Vallis's case? They also have a fiscal responsibility to make this work. Will the police department be expanded in such a way that it become inclusive and fit everybody in town? The Asians, blacks, people who have been left out of that process, or is it just another annuity program for the Irish? which is what it has been for the last 100 years. How are we going to fit, and who's going to pay?
Your thoughts, Reverend Stephen Thurston.
The candidates are going to have to articulate and direct their message past the black people, middle class, the poor black people. That's whose primary concern I care about as I distinguish who I'll support and who I'll drive my people to support. So there has to be a clear plan laid out to address the issues. When we look at the fact that seniors, those 65 and older, are the predominant voters in this last portion of the election cycle, how are we going to impact the lives of our African-American seniors and make sure that they sustain a quality of life, that they can afford to stay in their homes, that they sacrifice and pay for property taxes are now putting pressure on them and their fixed incomes as we continue to look at the exodus of black people from the city of Chicago because they just can't afford to live here. And then the quality of services are not up to par. And so how are the candidates going to speak to the people that I lead, preach to, Pastor Marion Barry, Sunday after Sunday?
Well, you know, I mean, because Marion Barry was that involved leader, as you well know. He was very, very much a man of the people, and that's why he was so beloved. Upon his death, basically, it was a state funeral in Washington, D.C. State funeral, because he had seen and touched so many people, and he met the people where they he met them at their needs, Reverend Jeanette Wilson. I mean, the fact is we wouldn't have a BET were it not for Marion Barry. He saw this cable network that he had in Washington, and he decided to give it to the hometown guy, Robert Johnson, as opposed to Percy Sutton out of New York. And he created a black entrepreneurial class in Washington, which had not existed before. When you look at what Maynard Jackson did in Atlanta, he completely changed Atlanta, the South, and really America. I mean, he demanded 50 years ago, if you want to do business with the city of Atlanta, we must have X number of black folks here. And he went and he pushed all of these programs into the community as well. I mean, what are the things that, what do you want to press the candidates on? What should they be pressed on, Reverend Wilson?
I think there are three things. Housing is a big issue in the city of Chicago. How will we make sure that during this mayor's term that we will expand affordable housing? How will we resource the people who have Section 8 vouchers in a way that will help them live in community and have a safe community for them to live in? Having perhaps using the people who have Section 8 vouchers to give them jobs to maintain the properties that they live in. If I clean it up, I guarantee you my children will not mess it up. If I am used to maintain and secure the buildings as opposed to external people, then it creates jobs, it creates pride in the facility. If I'm the one painting that wall, you're not going to write graffiti on the wall. And so I think that we have to look at how do we create jobs in community. Are these mayors going to convene the financial institutions in the city to make sure that they are funding small businesses so that even when they get a city contract, they have the capacity to pay their workers? You got to look at economic engines and how we're going to reinvest. The buses, public buses have always been the middle-class jobs. And so how can we train a whole nother generation to work the CTA and RTA lines? How do we get them more engaged in the transportation? How are we going to bring the trade training back to the city schools? Every school should have a trade that they teach. When I went to high school, you had wood shop, iron shop. You didn't have to go all the way to the north side or go out in the suburbs to learn basic contracting and construction. Most schools taught you a trade. You could get your car fixed at Dunbar. You could get landscaping at Marshall High School. We need to bring the trades back to our public high schools. And so are you prepared to do that? When will you do it? How will you do it? How are you going to fund it? How will you work with these trade unions to open up opportunities for blacks and other people who are not Irish or Italian.
Well, Kevin Lampy? Well, I mean, Kevin Lampy, because it seems that the debates are not digging down deeply enough. Something is being missed here. People want some other answers at least, Kevin.
Absolutely. I think it's the responsibility of both the candidates and the host of the forums to get into those details. Like, for instance, I think one of the things that you should discuss at the bottom of the hour when we have Paul Vallis on with you is we're going to have at least 16 new people in the city council. And what is his relationship going to be with city council? Who should support? Who should pick committee chairman? Should it be the mayor or the city council? And what is the city council? You know, aldermen have two main responsibilities. Basically, to be the janitor almost for the ward, providing security services, getting the garbage cans, getting the streets plowed, but they also have a legislative responsibility as well, where they're pushing ideas and making sure that the needs of the people are met. But what is going to be his relationship with aldermen? How does he look to work with them? You know, how will he work with an alderman that he knows that disagrees with him on every single issue? How is he going to? You know, how is as mayor? Are they going to treat their staff? You know, we've heard complaints about the last mayor, and one of the reasons why there was discontent was that she didn't listen when people brought up negative things within the administration. But how do you handle that? Because, you know, how can you tell us that your skin is going to be thick enough to take the attacks, but always have the people in your heart?
Call us at 773-763-9278. For this particular visit with us, Mr. Vallis will not be taking questions. I'm going to speak with him one-on-one. What I'm trying to do is cull from you the questions that you want him to answer, the issues that you'd like for him to discuss. So let me go to you, Mama D. Mama D, what's on your mind today?
Well, hallelujah, greetings to you. The 14th Amendment defines citizenship, and only citizens can lawfully vote in federal, state, and local elections. So my question is, how does the city justify giving sanctuary settlers and seekers the right to vote and work as police officers and have bilingual preferred policies that's based on privileges that American Africans do not have because English is their mother tongue language?
Okay, how will he justify giving jobs and the vote to people who are not citizens? Is that what you're asking?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Because English is our mother tongue language, and they are having bilingual preferred policies, and these are based on privileges that American Africans, we're the only ones that fit in that category, because everybody else that came here came from a country with a land and a language. Being stolen from a continent, our history is different. So American English is our mother tongue language.
Well, you know, but I tell you what, Mama D, the first European settlers here were the Spanish, which is why that's the most widely spoken language in this hemisphere. I personally believe that we can learn, we are advantaged by speaking more than one tongue, even though I do believe that America needs to have an official language, and that's what ties us as well. But that is a question that people, no, I'm just engaging you, that is a question that people do, that is a question that people do have, and I will try to pose it to him today, okay?
Right. Can I just finish with this? Because
just very quickly.
In order to pass the citizenship test, you must read, write, and speak English.
Mm-hmm. But these people who you're speaking of read, write, and speak English,
though. I'm not saying that we can't learn a second language. I'm saying to give up our mother tongue language and have other people have to required to pass the test, not obey those rules.
Yeah, I think that the people that you're speaking of, many of them, you know, I mean, it's their mother tongue, but most of us, if we have to pass an American English test, we can't pass it. And I hear you, but you got to be very careful with that, because many of us can't even pass a citizenship test. and we've been living here.
But that is just it. But if you're
I
not
hear you.
born
I'm
here,
just,
you're
I'm just,
supposed to pass
I'm
from
Mama
that
D.
side. That is the
Mama
tough.
D. I hear you. I'm just giving you you got to be real careful. You got to be real precise when you say these things, because if
Well,
the citizen,
I am
no, what I'm saying to you, Mama D, hold on. Let's engage each other, but let's not talk over each other. What I'm saying to you is, if you applied that standard, many of us won't pass it. And I'm just saying, you got to consider that. So as you have this policy, I hear you. Just continue to tweak it, because you don't want to set a bar that we cannot clear. Because they've already taken civics out of schools, so most of us don't know about the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments.
If the Constitution says, not me, it's not my
I
personal...
got you, but Mama D, most of us are not even familiar with the Constitution. That is the truth. Well, stay right there. Mama D, I hear you, but let me bring on Dwight. Dwight, most of us are not even familiar with the things that help us to become the citizens that we are.
I put her on hold.
Well, I got really bad news for you. In this generation, most of us can't read. It's not we don't read. We can't. It's that we can't. Our literacy for many of our children are at the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade level.
Well, wait a minute. Put a pin in that. I was told as a political commentator on Fox News that I needed to aim toward someone who was reading at the 5th or 6th grade level, because that is where we were. Hello? In furtherance of your point.
And one of the reasons, because reading and writing has been taken out of the schools. They don't teach the language, the logic of language. They teach memory, where you memorize words that you really don't understand the meaning of.
They don't even teach you cursive. They want to take that out of schools. I mean, what?
On the west side, which is where I'm the dean of my Martha class, and my guys are 20, 21, 22. The first thing I explain to them is what a syllable is and a vowel is, because nobody's ever told them that.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand. They don't understand what a verb is. They don't understand what a noun is. And all of them, many of them, have graduated or left school in sophomores and juniors, but they are functionally illiterate.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and let me speak to Daniel. Daniel, I am very clear that the native language, or their languages of the Americas, it's not English. I was speaking of the European project. You know, when Europeans came over here and took the land from indigenous people, yeah, it was the Spaniards who started this thing. Queen Isabella, thank you very much. So I'm here. I'm with you. But I'm just saying we have to be very careful, Reverend Thurston and Reverend Wilson and Kevin and Dwight, about these bars that we set, because these bars that we want to set, the game is stacked against us. Reverend Thurston, they're not even teaching you cursive writing now. They don't want to do that. They don't want you to read. They don't want you to write. They want you to be on an assembly line, and they're about to put robots on that.
Yes, ma'am. Evidence of the massive school closing in our communities, and the funding formula that's stacked against us to provide equal and adequate resources and exposure to our young people to equip them to be effective in society. It's the furtherance of the schoolhouse to jailhouse pipeline by creating leaks in that pipeline so people can't get what they need to get out and to move up in life.
It's a lot, everybody. So, we're about to welcome Paul Vallis onto the show and want to ask him some pointed questions in a respectful way so that we can find out. And I will do the same thing with Commissioner Johnson, because we need some answers. We need education. We need a safe, affordable housing. We need not just what we want, what we need. Our needs are not being met. Most Americans cannot afford to go to the emergency room. Please, people I work with here at the station do not have health care. They don't have health insurance. It's very expensive for you to provide health insurance for your employees. That having been said, it's very expensive for you to still buy it, even if you go on the exchange through ACA. We got a lot that we need. And you have a voice, and that is your voice is your vote. So please use it and then advocate after you have voted. Paul Vallis coming up on the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute.
Hello, Santita?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't hear anything. I got scared.
No, because I just said, thank you, and then I thought you all were going to get me out. But I sent you the number just now. Okay, my wonderful people, I am going to...
I got it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I was talking to Alex and I missed the cutoff. That's completely my bad.
No worries. If
you
can
sent
just...
me the Vallis number?
Yes, if you can just call him now.
Wonderful.
Perfect. He's waiting for you now. And we got to let our panel go, but I want to...
Okay, is there anyone you want me to let go first or just let go everyone?
You can let everyone go.
Okay. All right, no worries.
Okay.
Take care, everybody. It was great to be on with
Blessings to you. Thank you so much. Unless you all want to say hello and then go.
I'm gonna let you take care of this,
Okay.
and I appreciate being on with everybody this morning. Have a
Thank
wonderful
you.
day.
I will pass on your best regards. All right,
Please do.
everybody. So, who is calling me now? Oh, Mr. Vallis, they're about to call you right now. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, he's on it. Ooh, okay. Okay. Well, you know what, Star Child? The U.S. is an empire that's in decline. Well, empires decline, civilizations thrive and survive. That was something that Gore Vidal said about the United States. He said his principal disappointment in our country, in our society, was that we could have achieved civilization, but we chose empire. Because there has to be a choice. When you choose to be a conqueror and not a conciliator, that's the difference. So it's something to think about. Do we have Mr. Vallis up? Well, we're waiting on him, so that's great. Woo! Okay.
We have Mr. Vallis on.
Okay, perfect. Let me have him on. Mr. Vallis?
Yes, good morning.
Thank you so much. We will be up very shortly, but we're on Facebook Live. I always like to let people know.
That's fine. I apologize that I have to do this from a car.
No. I appreciate your making the time. Appreciate your making the time. And if you would, please find out if you can participate. We want you in that debate, the Rainbow Push debate on the 31st. I know that WCPT has one earlier in the day, but we so want you for that.
Okay, let me write that down. Let me check on that, and I'll try to get back to you. It's just that we're so booked on so many things, and
I'm sure.
I'm doing like 10 events a day, and I'm trying to juggle events back and forth. And we've got so many people inviting us to forums, we just don't have time to do them all.
No, trust me, I get it.
I mean, yesterday
We're about to go live in about 10 seconds.
I ended up, being late for another
Stand by.
event, so it's hard.
Hold that thought. No, hold that thought. But thank you.
Change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. It is March 10th, 2023. We are about 3.5 weeks away from electing a new mayor here in Chicago. And one of the two persons running for that office, Vallis, the former CEO of the Chicago Public Schools, is with us today. And we're so glad that you could grab the time to be with us. We were just speaking as he was coming up on the air. There are so many people who are calling him to do everything all through the day. This is the time when he has the 21-hour day, and we thank you for making the time to be with us on WCPT. And so thank you so much. So let me get right to it, Mr. Vallis, because we saw the debate the other night. Oh, you know, there's an open door policy here for you. You know that. You absolutely know that. But, there are several areas that I want us to get into and that I want you to answer some questions about, because I've been asking people what they want to hear from you. And of course, education, we have an administrator and we have a school teacher basically running. So education really is at the heart of our concerns. You've got Tony Evers to the north in Wisconsin, former school teacher. I mean, you have teachers. I don't know what it is about you all in education, but you all do get involved in public policy. But there it is. There you have it. What about education? Just after you did the show, there was an interview in which they were talking about, some people call it critical race theory. I just call it an accurate teaching of history.
Right.
You can't take history.
Right.
History is not gossip. History is what happened. How do you, please speak to that? I mean, because the concern is that history is being sanitized. The truth is not being told, which means it's not history. It's propaganda. As people come to you to talk about critical race theory, and which is a legal term, but an accurate teaching of what happened in America, all the things that make America what America is. Why don't you speak to that?
Let me respond by saying I've never said I oppose critical race theory, and you may well know, certainly your family knows that back in the 90s, we incorporated Black history into the entire curriculum. Just not during Black History Month, but it became incorporated into the entire curriculum, and we provided special training for the teachers. A second thing I did was we created a African history curriculum that was incorporated into world history, because it's not enough to talk about Black history. When you're talking about world history, why is world history always a discussion of Western civilization? So we incorporated African history into our world history curriculum. We also did a third thing, and I know Push is fully aware of this. We allowed local school councils and encouraged local school councils to go beyond just the core curriculum. And there are a number of schools, like the Betty Shabazz School and others, that actually developed exclusively Afrocentric curriculum. There were some schools that incorporated or supplemented their curriculum to have a Latino-centric curriculum. But the school councils during those periods had broad authority, and they would partner with local faith-based institutions, and they would, in effect, do, for example, if you ever go to Mike Flager's church, it's a Catholic curriculum, but it's an Afrocentric Catholic curriculum. So those are things that we do, that we did, and those are just facts. And it's for those, it's for that reason that people like Joyce Kenner and distinguished educators like Craig Williams and others are not only backing me, but are actively engaged in my campaign. So that's my history and that's my record. I have warned about the importance, though, of ensuring that you're also focusing on the core curriculum, and that you're also focusing on accountability, because our the test scores in the school system, only 6% of the Black kids in the Chicago public school system are meeting state standards in math, and 11% are meeting state standards in language arts. So clearly, you need more instructional time to ensure that you're focusing on the core subject areas.
No question. I think, though, what you also need, we need there to be cultural sensitivity, because we can't we can't say that white kids, we can't teach how heinous slavery was in the United States, because it might make white kids feel badly. I mean, the fact is, this is the taking of indigenous lands, because this is an indigenous continent. This hemisphere is indigenous, how they have been extinguished, what happened in the transatlantic slave trade, and on and on and on. That must be taught, because we're all everything that we are, Mr. Vallis, not just pieces. We can't cherry pick history, because that's not truth. And as an educator, if we're going to really understand who we are, we have to understand all that we are. We can't miss a day. My father often says that if you don't like birthdays, try missing one. You know how that is. But what about vocational education? As a champion of education, I want to know, what about vocational education that has been diminished? I mean, because now it's you or Commissioner Johnson. So we now need to know what it is that you all are planning to do, and how is it that we can begin to have kids come out of high school and go into the trades, and will you then advocate with unions to make sure that we can get our kids from high school into these trade unions, and so they can get these jobs?
It was interesting the night of the debate. Commissioner Johnson was asked if he had met with anyone from the police department on who might be promoted into position of responsibility. And, of course, I've met with dozens of people, and he had not met with anyone. Well, it's the same thing with the trades. I've actually met with all the trades. I've actually talked to all the trades about creating paid internships for all the students that the district could fund through the use of a lot of money that's currently wasted on things like irrelevant electives and irrelevant courses. When we were in the Chicago Public Schools, and Craig Williams was my director of high school programs, and Craig, we had a work-study program, a paid work-study program, where the students would be enrolled in school during the day, and then in the afternoons they would be in work-study. And we got work-study jobs with city agencies, with city departments. We did work-study jobs with local employers. People got subsidies. In fact, there were students who were allowed to form their own businesses. What I proposed for the better part of 4 years, and I've written it out, and I've detailed it in a whole series of op-ed pieces, including the Tribune, is requiring that all city departments, all city agencies, all city contractors, the unions that the city has a relationship with, that anyone getting big contracts from the cities or subsidies, that they all be required to provide work-study jobs. And that would be work-study jobs in hundreds of professions. In fact, I've recommended, and what I would do as superintendent, is I would take the 7 military high schools, all of which I opened, in the 40 ROTC programs, and I would create paid work-study opportunities for those students who were interested in the first responder professions, police, fire, EMT, EMS. So the young people would go to school, get their high school diploma, while in an internship or apprenticeship that would pay them in the profession of their choice. And you could bring that to scale. You could bring that to scale within a year. And I've articulated how to do that, because I'm all for, designating a trade high school. And, but look, the trades have been trying to get the current school district to designate a trade high school for the better part of 4 or 5 years. So they are so frustrated now. They're going to partner with Bill Mezikowski's school, Hope Academy on the west side, because the school district have not identified either the school or the business or the building to offer the trade school. So I'm talking about universal work study, just not in the trades, but you could have universal work study with law departments, with social service agencies. You could offer the hospitality industry could offer paid work study jobs for the kids. And I'm talking about 20, 30,000 kids. Any sophomore, junior, and senior should have an opportunity for paid work study.
What about this? As we look at education broadly, what is the role of charter schools, the privatized schools, and the neighborhood schools, and, say, the Whitney Youngs and the Northside Preps? Where do you see all of these schools, different schools, fitting in the constellation of public education?
Well, I think they're part of the mix. Look, poor children are denied public school choices unless they win the lottery and get into the magnet schools. And let me point out that I opened all the magnet high schools except Lane Tech and Whitney Young, and there are only, I think, 7 magnet high schools of the 126 traditional public high schools. So when Brandon says, oh, the magnet high schools are stealing all the money, even though many of the CTU leaders, if not all of them, send their kids to schools that are not in their communities, or they send their kids to magnet schools. I mean, the bottom line here is obviously magnet schools and more magnet schools I think are good. But my approach at CPS, as you may well know, was to put magnet programs in neighborhood schools. So we opened 15 international baccalaureate programs like I have at Lincoln High School. We put those programs in 15 neighborhood high schools, and we did international, and we did World Language Academy programs, and I think 8 high schools. We did Advanced Math Science Academy programs. We opened our Military Academy programs. So what we did was to significantly expand traditional public school choices. Insofar as charter schools, and Santita, I said this once before when we were at the last the Push forum. With respect to charter schools, I only opened 15 charter schools, and I opened the Youth Connection Charter School. Jack Weiss, those are these alternative schools that had existed in the community for years that educate individuals who have been released from incarceration, overage, underachieving dropouts. I'm talking 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. Those are the only charter schools that I opened. Artie Duncan then came in and opened like 100 schools. So,
will we see more? Will we see more charter schools, under a Vallis administration, or will we see a more robust neighborhood school system?
Well, let me point out that I think we have enough charter schools. If you're going to open additional charter schools, you need to take advantage of a state program which allows you to open state-funded schools for, they call it adult high schoolers, 18, 19, 21, 22, who have dropped out, who have been incarcerated, who are returning from incarceration. Because right now there's tens of thousands of young people aged 18 to 24 who not only do not have are not in school, but they don't have jobs. So I don't think you need to increase the number of charter schools. That's first of all. Secondly, I opened twice the number of traditional public schools than I did charter schools. I opened 15 charter schools. I opened 30 and built 30 new public schools. So, you're going to see more traditional public school choices in a Vallis administration. But what I also want to do is I want to turn these schools over to community leadership, because right now only 60% of the $30,000 per year that they are spending on public schools is finding its way into the classroom, and everything's being dictated by the central administration. And the central administration wastes money on privatization like Aramark and Sodexo, and on these district-wide programs that they impose on the local schools. Drive the money down to the local school level. Let the principals and their local school councils ultimately make the decision on how to spend the Title I money and the poverty funds, and allow them to determine what additional programs and support their children need.
So will we resource these neighborhood schools adequately? I mean, the way because I'm part of Whitney Young's first full 4-year graduating class, and people fought tooth and nail to get in there. And yes, I did have very strong test scores because I did not want to end up on television. Given how controversial my father was, that would have happened.
That's right.
That having been said, and I came out at the top of my class too, so it worked out. That having been said, I want to know, what about adequately, not just adequately, robustly resourcing neighborhood schools?
Well, the first step toward robustly resourcing is making sure that 80% of the money is going to the local classrooms, not 60%. Because right now, the school district in Chicago spends $30,000 a child, but only about 60% of that money finds its way into the local schools and into the local classrooms. Right now, 60% of all the city's property taxes go to the Chicago Public Schools. 25% of all the money that the state spends on K through 12 education goes to the Chicago Public Schools. You know, I believe that the state has an obligation to fully fund the school aid formula that they've been mandated to fund. So I'm going to fight for funding more than anyone else. But you've got to make sure that the money you have, the $30,000. Imagine having 4 children in your home and somebody giving you $120,000 to go find the best education for your child. I mean, the bottom line is that's what the schools are spending, but it's not finding its way into the classroom. And in a Val's administration, we'll do what we did when Chico and I ran the schools, and enrollment grew by 40,000 because we were pushing the money down to the local schools and letting the local schools and the local school principals make the final decisions on how that money should be spent.
Well, let me ask you about health, because there's so many questions, because we could talk about education, and we will continue to do that. Because should you become mayor, we will have to advocate for the things that it is that we need. Maternal mortality for black, white, brown, yellow, and red women in the United States is the worst in the Western world. And in Chicago, I mean, if you want to have a baby, it's tough. I mean, we don't have maternity wards between Roseland and the University of Chicago. I mean, that's like a city away. Is there what would you do to remedy that? I mean, the urgent care centers, we don't see them on the south and west sides. Delivering a baby, you could die before you get to a place where you could safely deliver your child. What resources would you do? Would you commit to changing that?
Well, just as we need to not only restore the mental health centers, but every single area that a police district serves should have a mental health center, should have opioid and drug addiction centers, should have local public health centers that can provide those type of maternity services. But let me tell you what else you can do, and this is something we did at the Chicago Public Schools. Our early childhood program had a prenatal to the classroom program where we would identify every pregnant teen in the schools, and we would assign that pregnant teen a parent coach, to work with that pregnant teen, to get that pregnant teen access to prenatal services and prenatal care. And when that baby was born healthy, that the coach would continue to work with that pregnant teen. In fact, coach the mother and the father. Most of the times, we're just talking about really single mothers, and would continue to be available to guide that first-time parent until the child entered school. We had I think 2,500 pregnant teens go through that program. Incidentally, when the children hit the 3rd grade, there was no achievement gap, even though there were like 99% of the children in the program were from families who were eligible for public assistance, and the mothers had a 85% graduation rate, and the number of repeat pregnancies was I think 5 or 6. So what I would do is I would bring the prenatal program to scale, because if the baby's not born healthy, and if the baby is not stimulated in those early 0 to 3 years, then the damage is done, and often the damage is permanent. And you could Google that program, and you could look at the editorials that the Tribune did and the stories that the Tribune did, and the research that the Ounce of Prevention did on that very program. So I've talked about, for the better part of 4 years, bringing that on a massive level, and that would address the gap that exists when it comes to prenatal care.
Well, that's one of them, but I'm talking about, and that's important, and you are to be lauded for that. But I'm also speaking of, women who are adults, who are married, who are trying to have children. They don't have access to a place to have a baby between Roseland and the University of Chicago. I mean, everybody's not going to be able to go to Northwestern. So what about them? I mean, because, for white women, for black women, for brown women, for yellow women, for red women, having a baby in the United States and in the city of Chicago is high-risk business. You could lose your life.
Well, what I'm saying Santita, is that just as we need to have, every community needs to have a mental health center that does in-calls and out-calls. And if you're billing for Medicaid, and if you're taking advantage of federal and state reimbursements, those programs can be covered, not to mention, obviously, on occasion, private insurance. But there's no reason why you can't open up maternity clinics or open up community-based public health centers that can provide that critical care in every community, too. We need public health clinics at the local communities that can address those needs. We need mental health centers that can provide the critical mental health services, not just a restoration of the 12, but we really need 21, 22 mental health centers in the community, and we need opioid and drug addiction centers. The fentanyl crisis is an absolute, it's an epidemic. My son died of the effects of long-term drug addiction, so we've been personally impacted by that, and obviously we were a family that had a few more resources to provide for his care and intervention. So we need to rebuild the social services infrastructure, and that needs to include providing those public health services and providing those centers that can help mothers who are in need of those services.
Absolutely, and keeping the children out of jail, like your son was able to not go to prison for possession, of these drugs that kill. What about safe, affordable housing? Karen Bass in Los Angeles, and this will probably have to be the last thing that I mentioned, that we're looking at homelessness, and we're looking at people who cannot afford to work a wage job in the city of Chicago and in cities all around the country, and rent a place. Just rent a nice, safe, affordable housing. Where will safe, affordable housing fit in the Vallis administration?
Well, what I've talked about for the better part of 4 years was to do the following. The first thing we have to do is we have to remove the obstacles to building more affordable housing, and the city is a bureaucracy, and I mean, whether it's big projects or small projects, the city housing department and buildings department are just a disaster. Second thing is we got to get control of the CHA. The CHA has thousands and thousands of vacant units that are unoccupied. The city CHA is supposed to be our affordable housing institution, but yet it's spending too much time selling its property to sports clubs. So the CHA really needs to come under the control of the housing department, so we can inventory and make those CHA units that are vacant available to people who need it. Third is there's 15,000 residential units that are sitting idle and empty, multifamily and single-family units. The city should seize those units, eminent domain, or go to tax court, and the city should turn those units over to the housing advocates, to not-for-profits, to faith-based organizations, with the grants to renovate those buildings so that those houses can now be made available, to not only people who are homeless, people who can't afford housing, but also for, returning citizens. The biggest issue for individuals returning from incarceration is they can't get housing, let alone not be able to get jobs. And also, we have no real domestic violence shelters in the city. I mean, you have 200 serious domestic violence requests for beds a night. The city, I think, controls only 150 beds. So at the end of the day, there's no reason why we can't provide thousands. Every community can't have available, every single ward can't have available hundreds of buildings that can be used to address the multiplicity of housing needs from the community. And then finally, we need to remove the obstacles that allow apartment owners to convert unimproved space to garden units. You could create 125,000 affordable units literally in short order if the obstacles were removed for individuals who landlords who own multifamily buildings to convert their unimproved space to garden units. So those are just a number of ideas that would significantly swell affordable housing.
I wanted you to finish your comment
Sorry
here on
about that. I
Facebook.
apologize for
Well,
prolonging
I'm
it.
syndicated, so we're in someplace else. But I wanted you to finish your thought, Mr. Vallis.
Well, I appreciate that. Just to finish, one final thought is, we spend over $1 billion in tax increment financing money on development a year. When are we going to start prioritizing using a good portion of that money focused exclusively on affordable housing? I mean, we could be spending $100 million in additional money a year just targeting the creation of affordable housing in communities if we simply allocated a portion of the TIF surplus for that. So there's no reason why we can't be doing much more for affordable housing. And we will, along the lines that I've articulated when I'm mayor.
Well, let me ask you this just before you go, because I know you're running today, and I thank you for just squeezing us into a packed day. What is it that you want us to know that you might not have been able to communicate during the debates and other meet and greets around the city?
Look, when I was city budget director, my opponent seems to be blaming everything that's happening in the city today, on my tenure as a city budget director and school superintendent during the period when Bill Clinton called the Chicago Public Schools a model for the nation. The bottom line is my history in the city was a history of balanced budgets, was a history of community policing, was a history of dramatic expansion of public school choices. As well as anyone out there that I was a regular at Push practically every Saturday, talking about the schools, participating in the conferences. When I went to Philadelphia, Reverend Jackson and others followed me there and had conferences. The same thing in New Orleans when I rebuilt an entire city school system after the devastation of Hurricane Katrina. Not to mention the international work I did in Haiti and in Chile after the earthquakes. I chaired Sean Penn's organization for 10 years, an organization that took care of 50,000 displaced Haitians and has done 2.7 million COVID vaccinations in 8 different American cities, including Chicago. So my record has been a record of accomplishment. My record has been a record of public service. And my record has been a record of me going into some of the most challenged communities in the most challenged circumstances, often willing to make personal sacrifices, certainly financial sacrifices, because my years working for Sean and with Sean were not years that I was being compensated. I did it because it was the right thing to do. My history is a history of service, and I'm basically running against somebody who was a school teacher for a few years in a school, the gender school, that I built in Cabrini Green before Cabrini Green, when Cabrini Green was still there, and besides being county commissioner, has spent the rest of his years as a union organizer and as a union consultant. So my track record is a track record of achievement and a track record of service to the community.
Well, organizing teachers and organizing the parents around teachers, all of that's important. I think that what both of you have done is very, very important. What we want to do now that it's just the two of you, we want to know specifically what it is that you plan to do. And at the end of the day, no matter who becomes mayor, we're going to have to advocate for what it is that we need. I mean, because you will be, should you become mayor, you will be taking over a city in need at a time when the nation is in crisis, that, we have such deep needs. You see that with Eric Adams in New York and Karen Bass in LA. I mean, the first thing she's got to deal with is homelessness, which is why I was asking you about safe, affordable housing and education, a way up and out. And I just thank you for making the time. We couldn't even get to the police and all of that. But boy, you have got your hands full. But I want to thank you for always being so open and for making the space for the show and for all the shows that you do, Mr. Vallis. Just thank you, and thank you for running.
Well, I want to thank you too, and I want to thank you for always, for always asking great questions and always giving me time to respond. You've been very generous with your time, and anytime you want me back, just give me a call.
Well, I'm going to do it. I got to get you on as much as, because I want people need to hear you. It's 45 seconds, 90 seconds in a debate and all of that. What I want is for you to be heard. And And that's very, very important. We have to get beyond the headlines. So thank you so much for being with me today. And please, a special shout out to Sally, who holds you together. I know this.
Yeah, she's had a rough week, and I'll get back to you quickly to try to see what I can do schedule-wise for your 31st event, okay?
Well, I'll tell you what, if we need to move things around, just let us know, Mr. Vallis, because we definitely, we want to have you at this event, because it won't be a debate without you.
Well, I'll be, yeah, that's right, you can't have a one-person debate. Well, let me work on it, I'll get back to you shortly. Thank you so much.
Okay, or and give us dates that might work even better. We know that, because, of course, that is the weekend, just so that you remember. April 4th, the day that we will be voting, is the anniversary of the assassination of Dr. King. And so Reverend is more than likely going to have to go to Memphis for that. So we thank you, and thank you for hearing me out.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Blessings to you. Have a wonderful day. Be safe out there.
You too.
Thank you. All right, everybody. That was Paul Vallis, one of the two persons who will be mayor of the city of Chicago. Want to know what your thoughts are? What your thoughts are? Please send me. Go to Santita Jackson and Friends and give me your comments. Please let me know what your thoughts are. If you all wanted to hear from him, and I'm going to have him back on before April 4th. And every time, to be fair, every time I've reached out, he's reached back and he's made it work. And so I'm grateful for that. So continue to send me your messages on Facebook so that I can know what it is that you want to ask. I was trying to put these questions, these issues that you put before me, in different baskets, because I want to ask the questions, but I also want to give him the chance to answer. And Chaparral, you're irritated. I wish I could take your call right now, but I want to know. I want to know what your thoughts are. So everybody, I love you. I am running out of here today. Love you, love you, love you. See you on Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson on Sunday. Of course, Brandon Johnson will be here on Monday, no doubt, speaking to these same issues. And what can I tell you? Thank you, Effie. Oh, my goodness. And thank you, board operator, and thank you, Alex. Sending you all much love today. God bless, God bless, God bless. God bless.